Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly extraordinary. We're taking a metaphysical journey straight into the mind of the brilliant 11th century philosopher Ramanuja. But don't worry, this isn't going to be some dry history lesson. Instead, we're going to explore his genius alongside two fascinating characters, a guide named Zoran and his human companion, Fletcher. Together, they're going to show us exactly how ancient texts can become so much more than just words on a page. Right off the bat, as Zoran leads Fletcher down into this vast, mystical hall, he sets the stage with a line that really sticks with you. He says, "Most people read scripture. Ramanuja inhabited it." Think about that for a second. Zoran is preparing Fletcher, and us really, to experience an immersive, cosmic architecture. We are basically going to walk through the mind of a guy who could hold the infinite universe in a single, structured thought. So picture this. As Fletcher steps into the space, he isn't just looking at dusty old shelves. It's a living library. The shelves of glowing palm leaf manuscripts rise up around him like ribs, and the walls literally seem to pulse and breathe. The air itself is humming with the vibrations of ancient Sanskrit and Tamil. It feels way less like a room full of books, and so much more like stepping inside a giant, conscious nervous system, where every single text is a sleeping neuron just waiting to spark. Now, I know what you're thinking. The word commentary usually brings to mind, boring textbook footnotes. But Zoran explains that for Ramanuja, it was an entirely different ballgame. His writings were absolutely not just academic explanations, they were literal translations of cosmic structure into human language. If this library is a living tradition, Ramanuja's commentaries are the synapses, the actual electrical connections that allow our human understanding to link up directly with the infinite. All right, let's get into how he built this. Section 1. The three great pillars. Mapping the metaphysical body. Zoran gestures in the air, and three glowing books materialize right in front of Fletcher. These represent the physical anatomy of Ramanuja's entire cosmos. First, you have the Sri Bhashya, which acts as the brain, handling the heavy metaphysics. Then you have the Gita Bhashya, serving as the heart for psychology and ethics. And finally, the Vedartha Sangraha, that's the spine, holding the whole thing together. It's a complete triadic nervous system for the human mind. Let's actually break these down one by one. Moving to Section 2, Sri Bhashya, Blueprint of the Metaphysical Brain. Opening this first manuscript, Fletcher watches as Sanskrit verses float upward into the air like glowing constellations. What Ramanuja is doing here is taking the notoriously cryptic Brahma Sutras and turning them into a highly structured mathematical map of the universe. He makes some massive claims. He asserts that the ultimate reality, Brahman, is personal, not just some empty, abstract void. He insists the world we live in is completely real, no illusions here. He argues that individual souls are beautifully distinct, and that our relationship to the divine is built into the very fabric of existence itself. And the best part? He says ultimate liberation means uniting with the divine without erasing who you are. Next up, Section 3, Gita Bhashya, Psychology of the Heart. As the second manuscript opens up, the ancient battlefield of Kurukshetra suddenly surrounds Fletcher. But Ramanuja transforms this from a literal physical war into a profound representation of our own inner psychological conflict. He was essentially practicing ancient cognitive science. He advocates for action without ego, and he frames devotion not just as a warm feeling, but as a literal cognitive alignment with truth. He sees knowledge as extreme clarity rather than cold detachment, and surrender as this massive psychological release. He framed the divine as the inner regulator of the human mind. I mean, this is deeply, deeply sophisticated psychology. Section 4, Vedartha Sangraha, the spine of unification. When this third manuscript opens, Fletcher finds himself completely surrounded by Upanishadic verses glowing in the space around him like stars in a galaxy. Now, before Ramanuja came along, a lot of these ancient verses seemed to completely contradict each other. Some sounded super dualistic, others totally non-dualistic. But Ramanuja took these massive contradictions and expertly wove them into a single, breathtakingly coherent system. He established that unity and difference can actually coexist perfectly well. The world and the divine are inseparable. The individual soul is just a specific mode of the infinite. And devotion is simply the natural resting state of our consciousness. It's philosophical integration at its absolute highest level. So how exactly did he pull this off? Section 5, the cosmic engineering method. You definitely don't just accidentally build a universal nervous system, right? You need a rigorous, almost algorithmic method. Zoran draws a glowing diagram in the air, revealing this strict 5-step cosmic engineering process behind Ramanuja's genius. First, linguistic precision. Every single word analyzed with surgical clarity. Second, absolute logical coherence. Zero contradictions allowed. Third, experiential grounding. This means the philosophy actually has to make sense in your daily lived reality. Fourth, ethical alignment. Basically, if a truth is real, it must produce compassion. And finally, relational metaphysics, the idea that absolutely everything exists in connection to something else. This system ensures every single piece of the universe connects logically and ethically.
Section 6, Fletcher's Realization, a living field.
As all these rules and glowing manuscripts swirl around the room, Fletcher gets hit with a massive paradigm shift. Normally, we treat texts merely as information, just words describing reality to us. But Fletcher realizes that for Ramanuja, these texts are active revelation. They're the actual operating system that allows human beings to plug directly into a living field of consciousness, rather than just reading cold facts about it from the outside.
Section 7, Modern Cognitive Science Parallels.
Now, Zoran shifts into a sharp, highly analytical mode to prove that this isn't just a bunch of ancient mysticism. What's completely wild is that modern science confirms exactly what Ramanuja was building. In cognitive science, we know for a fact that interpretation shapes our perception of reality. Neuroscience literally shows that finding meaning reorganizes our neural pathways. Systems theory tells us that logical coherence increases the stability of any structure. Linguistics proves that language structures our consciousness, and information theory shows how commentary acts as both the compression and expansion of data. Ramanuja was literally coding a cognitive architecture for humanity, long before any of these sciences even existed. And that brings us to the ultimate realization here. Ramanuja is eternal, because he didn't just passively interpret the cosmos, he successfully translated it into incredibly dynamic structural frameworks. His works are literal maps for the lost. They are algorithms for the logical, blueprints for reality, living nervous systems, relational models, and active consciousness interfaces. He built tangible tools for the human mind to grasp the infinite. As Fletcher and Zoran's journey comes to an end, and as we step out of this breathing, glowing library of the mind, I want to leave you with a final, profound thought to chew on. We all use frameworks to make sense of the world every single day. So ask yourself, what kind of nervous system is your own mind building to understand the universe around you? How are your own interpretive frameworks actively translating the cosmos right now? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.